Welcome to Tailspin Videos. This is one in a series of videos demonstrating aerobatics in the DCS Yak-52. In this video, I'll demonstrate an inside loop. This is not flight instruction. You must receive dual flight instruction from a qualified flight instructor prior to attempting aerobatics in an aircraft. I'll perform 4 loops in this video, talking through each step as I go through the maneuvers. You'll see these steps on the kneeboard on the screen as I go through them. If you look out ahead, you'll see the control tower, which will be show center. I'll center the loops on the control tower. I'll present the loops first from the perspective of the pilot, then I'll show the same loops from a spectator's viewpoint as seen from show center. And we'll be flying in no wind conditions today. Before we taxi out for takeoff, we'll review the procedure we'll follow to perform the loops today. They will appear on the checklist that you'll see there on the screen. We'll start at 300 kilometers per hour straight and level over the airfield. As we approach show center, which is the control tower, we'll start a 4G pull-up. Maintaining that as we go vertical at 90 degrees. We'll look out to our left wingtip, check our position. As we approach the key point number 1, which is 30 degrees before the top of the loop, we'll reduce the pull, look up, which is actually looking down at the runway, float over the top of the loop at about 170 kilometers per hour. Key point number 2, which is 30 degrees beyond the top of the loop, will once again start to increase pull to 4 Gs. As we go vertically downward at 270 degrees, we'll reduce power, continue pulling 4 Gs, and at the bottom, as we come out of the loop, we'll check our altitude, speed, and alignment. And we'll discuss each one of these steps in more detail as we fly the loop. Okay, we're ready to taxi. I'll check the brakes first thing as we start. Yep, they're working. Yak drivers tend to taxi fast to keep the rudder effective for steering. Yaks use pneumatic braking for steering, and I don't want to use up air or heat up the brakes, as that'll cause them to fade. What we'll look for today in properly performed loop is number 1, symmetrical circle, number 2, staying in the same vertical plane throughout the loop, and number 3, begin and end the maneuver at the same altitude and on the same heading. As I talk through the maneuver, I'll identify the 8 separate steps we saw on the kneeboard. I won't be staying in the standard aerobatic box during the flight today, but I will center the loops on show center control tower as we mentioned. I'm lined up on the center line, so I'll perform the pre-takeoff aerobatic checklist. Number 1, reset the G meter. Number 2, set the altimeter to 0 regardless of field elevation. Align the HSI. Set prop to full increase. Check elevator trim neutral. Verify the flaps are up. And close the canopy. And we're ready for takeoff. And here we go. As I smoothly apply full power, torque and P-factor pull the nose to the right. Remember, this engine turns backwards compared to US engines. I correct with a left rudder. The same torque will have a significant effect during the loop, as you'll see in a minute. There's a control tower in the background. The tower is just about center of the field, so that will be show center, where I'll center the loop and where we will be watching from. And gear up, and at 100 meters above the field, I'll make a turn to get a proper distance to get set up for the first loop. So a loop is an exercise in energy management. We won't get deep into the physics of the maneuver, but suffice it to say, in performing a loop, you convert the kinetic energy you have at the entrance or bottom of the loop converting it to potential energy at the top and then back to kinetic energy as you finish the loop once again at the bottom. Level out at 300 meters above the field and bring RPMs back to 82%. And we'll start a descending turn toward the field, accelerating, and get set up for the first loop. As we approach the airfield to get set up for the loop, we need to establish a longitudinal reference line to follow as we enter the loop, go over the top, and exit the loop. I'll use the runway as a reference line. On the checklist, you'll see 2 key points are in bold. First key point is 30 degrees before the top of the loop. The second key point is 30 degrees after the top. I'll point these out on our first loop. Prior to commencing the maneuver, trim the aircraft to straight and level flight at cruising speed. Don't retrim when flying the maneuver. Turn smoke on, and we're approaching show center there. Start with a 4G pull-up. There's vertical and approaching key point 1. Slack off the pull. Key point 2. Start pulling again. Reduce power vertically downward and exit the loop at the same altitude, airspeed, slightly off the vertical plane. And we'll start a climbing turn away from the reference line as before to set up for the next loop. Here's our second loop. Approach show center at 100 meters AGL, 300 kilometers per hour, over the reference line. Coming up on show center, the control tower down there on the right. Start with a 4G pull-up at 90 degrees. We'll look left, check our position, ease off on the pull at key point 1, float over the top, and start pulling again at key point 2, and come out just about centered on our longitudinal plane, same altitude, same airspeed. And here's the third loop, straight and level, 100 meters AGL, 300 kilometers per hour. As you start the loop, you start pulling with a 4G pull-up. As your airspeed decreases going up, you have to pull back further to maintain the same rate of rotation. And then as you come back down, you start pulling again, and you pull less as your airspeed increases. And there we come out, same altitude, airspeed, and on plane. Here's loop number 4, lined up along the reference line, 100 meters AGL, 300 kilometers per hour, straight and level, and begin 4G pull-up. At vertical, key point 1, relax the pull, drift over the top, start pulling again at key point 2, power off, keep pulling, 4Gs, and straight and level. Drifted off plane a little bit to the right due to the torque and P factor. Now we'll move to show center, right in front of the control tower, and we'll look for the aircraft approaching for the first loop. And here we are, straight and level along the reference line, 100 meters AGL, 300 kilometers per hour. As we approach show center, pull and maintain 4G pull-up, 90 degrees, look over your left wing, check your position, key point 1, reduce the pull, look up, which is looking down at the ground, and float over the top. That looks a little bit pinched at the top. I didn't reduce the pull on the stick quite enough there. And there's the turn away from the reference line to get spacing set up for the next loop. Okay, here we come for loop number 2. This time I'll point out the key points. Key point 1, which is 30 degrees before the top of the loop, inverted horizontal at the top of the loop. Key point 2 is 30 degrees after horizontal, inverted at the top of the loop. There's 90 degrees. There's key point 1 where you reduce back pressure. Don't eliminate back pressure, just reduce it. Let the aircraft float over the top. Key point 2, start pulling again for 4 Gs and pull out at just about the same altitude. That one looks a little bit better. Just the right amount of pull over the top to make it a nice symmetrical loop. Here we come for loop number 3. Loops are done at full power, 82% RPM. Straight and level full power gives you about 300 kilometers per hour. So that's about where we enter the loop. Start the loop, 4G pull up. Maintain full power up and over the top till about key point number 2, which is 30 degrees beyond the inverted horizontal, or right about there. Reduce power back down and leave the power reduced till about coming out of the bottom of the loop, go back to full power. And you see I got a little bit low on the exit on that one. And here we come for fourth and final loop. A loop performed properly the aircraft remains in one vertical plane. Now as you start to climb the beginning of the loop, power is high, airspeed's dropping off, so the engine torque and P factor tends to pull the nose of the plane off to the right, as we saw on takeoff. So you end up coming out a little bit out of the vertical plane, which is what I've done there, but it's not evident from this perspective here. But I was a little bit to the right of the plane that I started. Well, that's it for this video, the first in a series of aerobatic instructional videos. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, perhaps learned something. Please like us, leave a comment, and subscribe for notification of future videos.